You have probably used one today, maybe twice, and you have almost certainly never once thought about the fact that it doesn't produce heat, not a single degree of it. Your microwave, the thing you trust to reheat your leftovers, is not a heater in any sense of the word. It's closer to a radar transmitter. The same fundamental technology that tracked enemy aircraft in World War II is sitting on your kitchen counter right now, and it's been there your whole life. The way it actually gets your food hot involves water molecules being forced to vibrate so violently against each other that they generate their own heat from the inside out. And that's just the beginning, because once you understand what's really happening inside that box, you're going to look at a lot of other things very differently. Let's get into it. Think about what you pictured the first time someone explained a microwave to you. There's probably some vague idea in there. Heat coming from somewhere inside the machine, radiating inward, warming your food from the outside in, like a tiny oven with invisible burners. Maybe you imagined glowing elements hidden behind the walls. Maybe just some general warmth filling the box. Most people, if you pin them down, describe something like infrared heat, the same kind a grill or a stovetop uses, just somehow directed at your leftovers from every angle at once. That model feels right. It's logical. It matches everything else in your kitchen. And it is completely, fundamentally wrong. Has been since the day you first used one. A microwave doesn't warm the air inside the cavity. It doesn't heat a surface that then heats your food. There are no elements, no infrared bursts, no heat source of any kind. The box itself stays close to room temperature. If you put your hand inside an empty running microwave, which, to be clear, you should never do, the walls wouldn't feel warm at all. The heat your food produces, it comes entirely from within the food itself. And to understand how that's even possible, you need to go back to a radar lab in 1945 and a chocolate bar that had no business melting. His name was Percy Spencer, and he was not trying to invent anything that day. It was 1945. Spencer was an engineer at Raytheon, working on magnetrons, the vacuum tubes that powered military radar systems during the war. Radar had just helped the Allies track enemy aircraft across the sky. The magnetron was the heart of that technology, generating the microwave radiation that made it all work. Spencer was standing near an active magnetron when he reached into his pocket and found a mess. The chocolate bar he had brought with him had melted completely, and nothing around him was warm. A different person walks away confused and mildly annoyed. Spencer got curious. He started experimenting. He held popcorn kernels near the magnetron. They popped. He tried an egg. It exploded. He wasn't imagining things. The magnetron was doing something to food, and he wanted to know exactly what. Within a few years, Raytheon had filed a patent and built the first commercial microwave oven. It stood nearly 2 meters tall and weighed hundreds of kilograms. It cost more than most people's cars. Decades of refinement later, that same core technology, the magnetron, sits in a box on your counter for the price of a cheap dinner out. The machine changed. The physics never did. And those physics are stranger than almost anyone realizes. Water molecules are weird, and that weirdness is exactly what a microwave exploits. Here's the thing about a water molecule. It's electrically lopsided. One end carries a slight negative charge. The other end carries a slight positive charge. Scientists call this being polar, but think of it like a tiny magnet that can't help responding to whatever electromagnetic field it's sitting inside. Your microwave fires radiation at a very specific frequency, 2.45 gigahertz. That number isn't random, and we'll come back to why later. What matters right now is what that frequency does. It creates an oscillating electromagnetic field inside the cavity of the oven. back and forth, billions of times per second. And every water molecule in your food is desperately trying to rotate and align itself with that flipping field, each time it switches direction. Billions of times per second. That's not gentle warming, that's molecular chaos. All those molecules yanking and spinning and colliding against their neighbors, over and over, faster than you can even begin to imagine. And all that collision, all that friction at the molecular level generates heat. Not heat applied from the outside in, heat created from the inside out, born directly inside the food itself. That's why a microwave can make the center of a dish dangerously hot, while the plate it's sitting on stays almost cool. The plate has no water molecules being agitated. The food does. Which raises a genuinely strange question. Your food isn't just water, there's fat in there, dry crust, sugar, dense protein, things that contain little to no water at all. So what exactly is happening to those parts? And why does microwaved food never, ever get a proper crust? Fat doesn't care about microwaves. Neither does sugar or dry bread or the crispy skin on a piece of chicken. Those materials have almost no free water molecules to agitate, so the microwave radiation passes through them almost entirely. They absorb almost nothing. The heat they eventually pick up is borrowed heat, conducted inward from the wetter parts of the food around them, which means they are always the last to warm up, always slightly behind, always a little disappointing. But water-rich areas, they're absorbing energy fast and hard. And because microwaves penetrate into food rather than heating it from the outside surface, a dense dish can build up intense heat at its core before the outer layer has barely registered a change. That's why you've burned the roof of your mouth on a lasagna that felt merely warm on the bottom of the fork. The center wasn't just hotter, it had been cooking harder, for longer, in a way your fingers couldn't warn you about. And that crust problem, it's fundamental. A crust forms when surface moisture evaporates under dry heat. Think of a hot oven blasting air around your food. A microwave never does that. The surface isn't being heated from outside. The moisture inside your food gets driven outward, and instead of crisping, the surface just goes soft and slightly wet. Physics won't let you cheat your way around it. Now look at the door of your microwave. That metal mesh on the window isn't decorative. It's a Faraday cage, a precisely engineered barrier where the holes in the mesh are small enough to block 2.45 gigahertz waves from escaping into the room, but large enough to let visible light through so you can watch your food spin. The frequency the microwave uses is contained inside that box on purpose, which raises the question, why that specific frequency, and who decided the rest of the world had to work around it? The frequency wasn't chosen because it heats food best. It was chosen because it's one of the few parts of the electromagnetic spectrum the world agreed nobody else needed to own. There are internationally coordinated bands of frequency called ISM bands, industrial, scientific, and medical, set aside specifically for devices that need to radiate energy without licensing it. Microwave ovens were slotted into one of those bands early on. And the reason that matters is this. Without that agreement, your microwave would be actively jamming the signals around it. Wi-Fi runs partly at 2.4 gigahertz. Bluetooth lives in the same neighborhood. Certain medical monitoring equipment operates nearby too. Your microwave leaks a small amount of energy, even with the Faraday cage doing its job. And if that leakage landed on unprotected frequencies, the interference would be real and measurable. So every time you reheat soup, you are operating inside a framework of international spectrum governance that was built to keep the wireless world from collapsing into noise. Your kitchen appliance has a designated lane in the global electromagnetic order. And that lane was carved out by the same vacuum tube technology that started this whole story, a device called a magnetron that, remarkably, hasn't changed much since the 1940s. Think about that for a second. The magnetron, a vacuum tube invented to detect enemy aircraft, is still the core of almost every microwave sold today. Decades of smartphones, flat screens, and self-driving cars, and the heart of your microwave is essentially unchanged. That's not laziness. That's a technology so well suited to its job that nothing has beaten it. What you have on your counter isn't really a kitchen appliance. It's a controlled electromagnetic cavity, a metal box specifically engineered to trap and bounce radiation until it agitates matter at the molecular level. The spinning plate, the mesh on the door, the precise frequency locked into international law, none of that is convenience design. It's all containment, it's all control. You are, every single morning, briefly operating a descendant of wartime radar to heat your coffee. The same physics that once spotted incoming bombers is what makes your leftovers steam. It just happens to live next to your toaster now. So the next time you press start and walk away, maybe don't. Stand there for a second. Watch it through that mesh window, the one that's blocking invisible radiation while letting light pass through. Because what's happening inside that box is genuinely extraordinary. It always has been. You just didn't know it yet.